All right, so I'm gonna wrap this in a form. See if I'm getting that behavior now. Yeah, okay, so notice in my page version. So what we can do is, so there's actually like this event listener. When we click and it calls our function, our onSubmit function, it actually passes it a parameter, which if you don't set up the parameter, it doesn't throw an error or anything. It's totally fine. But you can add a parameter if you want to get the thing it passes you. And what it passes you is called like an event. And it has all this information on like what was clicked, where it was clicked on the page, and like a ton of just like properties and stuff like that. So we can add a parameter, name it whatever you want. So I'm just going to call it event. But that's the, it's like this fancy kind of like object, bunch of properties and methods on it. So what I can do, and I think maybe this will tell me what it is. No, it has no idea. Okay, so event dot, so what I found was the click event, and so this is the documentation of like the thing that's passed in, and then I'm looking for. Very helpful. I'm just trying to show you how much work you have to do sometimes to find what you're looking for. Uh,
URL request, right?
I mean, I know exactly what I need to type, but I'm trying to show you how you figure it out. Like, it's just like you need to look at the documentation to find out about this. So, yeah. See, I think we got it. All right, so this is a pretty complicated thing. So there's like a bunch of different, like, remember how when we're using that function, the add event listener, there's a bunch of different event types that we can listen for, like click or like mouse in or like drag or like just anything you can do on the page. And so different, like depending on which one you use, your function that's listening for the event is going to get passed a different information based off of that type of thing. So that's what this is kind of saying here. There's like a generic sort of event that's going to have a bunch of properties. And then there's sort of like more specialized versions of that, like animation event, blob event, close event. Like, so these are all different types of events that will have different properties, though they'll also share a lot of the same properties. So I think we probably have like a mouse event or like a submit event. But so here's a few of the so here's a few, this is what I was looking for. What are the properties of this thing that's passed to me? And so here are a bunch of the properties. And then I'm looking for methods. And this is what we're looking for. So prevent default is what we want to call to say like, don't do the stupid old thing that you used to do. Which is like try to submit this form and refresh the page. So, so we'll do prevent default. And so page didn't refresh, like you can still see my console log here, but and then we still cleared the form. Okay, sorry. All right, that's the warm up. Woo! And yeah, let's start going into some of the curriculum. Okay, so you guys should have done this pre-work. And this is where you get into like what's called branching in a program, where there's a program that you have, but it's not like gonna run exactly the same way every time. Like, so every program we've written so far goes top to bottom and like everything happens in that order. And when you learn about Booleans and then being able to sort of ask questions, so like, is this equal to that? Is this greater than that? Is this string more than 5 characters? Like just like any question you might ask, you can then, so you ask a question, it gives you an answer in true or false form, Boolean form. And you can then say, okay, if that's true, then do this. Otherwise, do this. And so you all of a sudden, your code can then have all these different branches that it might take based off of the questions you ask. And like a lot of times those questions are based off of some sort of data they're receiving. So like someone types in something and you say, is this what I wanted them to type in? If so, then do this. Otherwise, tell them that they did something wrong. So yeah, this is where you can start making more dynamic programs now that you've learned this stuff. So Booleans is just there's just true and false, and it looks like sort of like a variable. Like you just type true without any string around it. Like this is a string, this is a Boolean, and the difference is just no quotes. So there's true, there's false, and you can assign these to a variable if you want to. So const first Boolean, const second Boolean, so we just say true false, log to the console. And you can flip these. So you can say like with this bang is what it's sometimes called, but exclamation point. So you use exclamation point and then a Boolean right after that. So this first Boolean is true. And so we're saying not true. That's what this bit, like the exclamation point is like, not, not true. So what's not true? False. Yeah. So it just turns it to the other thing. And what's not false? True. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a way to flip it. And that's really useful because you might say like, is this equal to something? So like we could say is sorry. So we can say console log like is the first Boolean equal to the second Boolean? And like we just we know it's not because we wrote this up here. But it may have been like a question based off of user input or something. So we can ask, okay, we have these two variables, like, are they equal to each other? Meaning, when you see this triple equals like this, that means, is it the same type? Meaning, are they both Booleans? Or if these were strings, like, are they both strings? So are they the same type? And then if they're the same type, are they the same value? So so this statement right here is it's a question. We're asking a question. And then it's gonna resolve into an answer, which is just yes or no. So true or false. So what is this gonna resolve to? False, yeah. They're the same type, but one is true and one's false, so they're not the same. And so yeah, let's take a peek at what we have here. So we expect in the console to see true, and then false, and then first boolean is true, not, so false, so it's flipped. And then these are not equal, so false. So yeah, true, false, false, false. Okay, so if we have so we're often asking questions about our primitive types. So like with strings or with numbers, there's like a bunch of different things we may want to know about them. So we can say with the string, we can say, is Zach equal to Maze? You can say, are these two strings equal? We can say, is 1 greater than 2? So that's another question. This is going to give us true or false. Is 1 greater than or equal to 1? Zach not equal to Zach. So just in your head, just think of what you think these will be. So this is the string Zach of the same type and have the same value as the string Maze. No. It's false. Is 1 greater than 2? No. Is 1 greater than or equal to 1? Yes. Is Zach not equal to Zach? No. So yeah, that's what we should see in the console. I mean, it's just the same bunch of gibberish, but yeah. Just a bunch of trues and falses. Okay, so these are not very great examples. Like it wouldn't make any sense to do something like this. But you can probably quickly think of some things that make sense. So we did our garage sale, and like they may or may not have put stuff in the shopping cart. And so at some point in your program, you might need to ask like, how many items are in the shopping cart? And or like, is there anything in the shopping cart? Because you might want to show a certain thing on the page when it's empty versus when it has values. So you would say, like, so let's imagine I've got my shopping cart. So you make a variable that you then give an array. And then we were seeing where like, as you were adding stuff to your shopping cart, we would push to the array that item. So we have a shopping cart, it's empty, and we might have a function that's like update page if cart empty or something. And so this needs to ask a question. It needs to know, is the shopping cart empty? So how can we ask if the shopping cart's empty based on what we just learned? So the shopping cart's an array, remember, and how do we find out how many elements are in it? blank, yeah. So how can we form a question in our code that tells us whether or not there's anything in the cart?
Shopping cart dot length equals 0 would be nothing, right?
Yeah, so there's actually a few ways to do this, and honestly, like I just kind of flip flop all the time on like how I want to do it. But yeah, we can ask a question like you know, so we can say like is empty. So we're gonna make that a boolean, true or false, of whether or not it's empty. So if it's empty, this will be true. So we can say, all right, shopping cart dot length is triple equals 0. You could also, so that's totally fine. You could also do, and I'll just comment this out. You can also do less than 1. That would give you the correct answer as well. So yeah, we can ask a question like, is the shopping cart empty? Or like if we were doing the license input thing and we have an input for their name and it's supposed to be their first and last name, we can say, okay, like is there a space in here or not to separate the first and last name? And like, is there a space in here and is it at least like 3 characters? Like did they just type 1 letter or something? Like these are all questions you can ask. You can say, like with the string, there's a method called contains that'll tell you whether or not that string contains a particular string. So you can say like, you know, name input dot contains a space, and it'll say yes or no. It'll give you back a boolean. So I mean, yeah, there's just like a ton of stuff that you may need to ask about the program that you're writing, like the state of the program based off of how someone's interacting. Yeah, so you can do that with the stuff you learned. All right, so how do we actually branch at this point though? So if we ask about the shopping cart being empty, how do we then do a branch in our code to, in the case that it's empty, do one thing, otherwise do something else? How do we do that?
If
Yeah. So yeah, we say if, and then we do this parenthesis, and then we do the wiggle. And we just like we have this, so this is kind of the structure of it, and then inside the parentheses here, we just have to give it a true or false. We have to give it a boolean. And so this thing, the way this thing works is it says, okay, cool. So like I will run the code in the wiggles if what you put inside the parentheses is true. And so this can be any question that you ask, you can put right here. So we can say, if shopping cart dot length is 0, then run the code. And so that's what we have assigned to this variable is empty. So we can just put is empty right here. And then we can, we can put whatever code we want here. Like just as much code as you want can go inside that block. Or you can call a function or like whatever you want to do. So we'll console log cart is empty. And this is perfectly fine. You may not need to do anything else. You may just need to check one thing and then run that block of code and then nothing else. So this is perfectly valid at this point. And so if we actually want to see this run, we have to do what? We want to actually have this update page of cart empty function run this code. What do we need to do?
have something that calls the function.
Yeah, so we'll call it just right here. So it is empty because I never add anything to it. So we should see this console log. So cart is empty, seeing that. And then if I add something to the cart before we run the function, I don't support bringing up. Then we don't see anything because it's not empty. And we don't have any code that runs when it's not empty. All right, so if that's what we want to do, like if we only have two branches, and like, how do we then add something that catches the case where it's not empty? What'd you say? Yeah. So we'll do an else. And this doesn't need a parenthesis with a condition because like the condition is the first thing, and then we just, if that one's false, then do this branch, do the code in these moves. So we can do console log not empty. So now we'll see when we look at this code, we'll see not empty log. Okay, and then we may want to be more specific for whatever reason. So we may have a special discount if they have more than 5 items in their cart. And so we can say, you know, if the cart is empty, do this. If it's 5 items or more, do this. If it's 5 items or less, do this. So what's the other thing that we can do for that kind of case?
Is it else if?
Yeah. So if by itself, perfectly valid. If with an else, perfectly valid. And then also you can do else if, and that does need a condition. So we have a parenthesis thing again. And then you can, this is perfectly valid if with an else if, but then we can also do if else. And you can do as many else ifs as you want. Like you could have if and then 50 else ifs and then an else. And that's fine. But you would never do that because that would be a nightmare to understand what it's doing. But you could. So yeah, we can say if the cart's empty, do this. Else if shopping cart dot length greater than equal to 5, because that's the special discount thing. Oh, sorry. If the shopping cart length is greater than 5, discount. Else not empty. So we should see, at this point, we should see which one of these logged to the console. So I know it's not empty, but less than 5 because the first 2 were false. So it's not empty. So there's something in it, but it's not greater than 5. So it's got to be 1 through greater than or equal to 5. So it has to be 1 through 4. But maybe I want to know if they only need one more item to get their discount. So I might be like, else if shopping cart dot length equals 4, and then else not empty but less than, this becomes not empty but less than 4. And we want to do just by one thing. We still only have one, and so we're gonna see non-empty less than 4. So like in the else, there's like, the else is like if everything else is false. So if every question you asked before that was false, then the else runs. And so you have this sort of knowledge in the else of what the value is because all the prior checks failed. But like we don't have to use an else. We could have had an else if that was like shopping cart dot length greater than 0. Did you guys see? I don't think that was in the, was it? Yeah, you didn't see it. There's actually a way to ask more than one question at a time. And that's called and. So like sometimes you ask more than one question, like did you brush your teeth? And did you brush them for 2 minutes before bed? So like questions can be more complicated than just one question, but like there's still one answer, right? So you can say like, did you do this and did you do this? And you can also say like, did you do that or that? Did you do your I don't have kids, but did you do chores or did you clean or did you do your homework or whatever, right? Like, did you do something good? So yeah, so you can ask questions of the program the same way. You can like chain multiple things together. So the syntax for that for and is an ampersand, 2 ampersands. So we can say so we can say is the shopping cart dot length
Have to be like a number and a special item or something.
I can't think of a good example. I can think of an or example that's pretty good. So shopping is the length 4, or you might say 3. So like is the shopping cart length equal to 4 or, and so for or it's 2 of these like pipe things. Or is the shopping cart dot length equal to 3? So you can ask one more question. And so this resolves this whole thing right here still is turned into one Boolean, one yes or no. So we're still getting not empty but less than 4. But if we add 2 things, we're still seeing not empty but less than 4. But when we add one more thing, we then get just by a few more things. Okay, any questions? Cool. Oh, you did learn about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Maybe I was just testing. All right, I think it's everything from the curriculum. Oh, yeah, one last thing. So keep in mind, like, these are exclusive, meaning like The minute one of these is true, like it's not gonna check anymore. It's not gonna keep running the code. And and only one of these is gonna run. So there's a branch of 4, only one of the 4 will run. All right, cool. Everybody online doing okay? So we can chat. Gia, you gotta, I'm not watching the chat. You gotta just unmute and say Lane.
We're doing fantastic.
That was like 30 minutes ago.
Okay, cool. So, all right, let's extend our license program that we wrote to check the input and do what's called input validation. So making sure that what they type in is what you expect. So we can give an error if their name is too long, and we can also give an error if they type in 1,000 for their age or something like that. So now you can ask questions, you can do stuff like that. So let me get the license program. So this is where we left off in the program. We had just made the function that gives us a nicely formatted line with information of what they inputted. So, okay, we want to validate the information before we print or give them their license. So this code here, we're considering we're printing the license and we're shipping it to you. It's kind of vibe this here. It's we're printing the license. So before we do that, and we may make this function actually. So we just having code just kind of hanging out like that is not super common. We often put everything in a function and then just call the function. And so what this is print license. So we'll make a function print license, and then we'll just move this code to there. And these are name, age, and address. Those are global variables. So this print license function can still reach out and use those global variables. Okay, so we've got the function make license, we've got the function print license. Print license calls make license line. So remember I said your program is a bunch of functions, and then it's a chain of those functions calling the other functions. So you'll have a bunch of functions, but then the start of the program, there'll be a main function. And that's the first one that gets called, and then it dictates what should happen, which function should be called after that. So we prompt for the name, age, and address, and then from there, we want to do our validation. So we can have a function called validate inputs or something. And so we'll define that function, but that's the function that's sort of our main function that we want to call. So we'll call that validate inputs. And that will sort of kick off the program. After the prompts will happen first, but then we'll call that function to validate. So, all right, we may just need to have like a cutoff of how long the name can be. Which I don't know how you would actually handle that on a license. I assume it like they just like go to the next line, or like I'm sure they must have some cutoff. You can't just type 1,000 characters in this input, you know. So let's say our cutoff is this is too small, but let's just say it's 10 for whatever reason. So we can actually like if we're gonna like make this sort of like 10 is like a business thing. It's called business logic or domain logic, meaning like that's a number that is specific to what you're working on. And so we may actually assign that to a variable. We would say like const max name input characters or something like that is 10. So when someone's like, why are you checking if the length of this is 10? Like, what the hell does that mean? If you do it this way, they're like, oh, that's the max amount of characters. Okay, cool. So it's just like a good way to document what's called a magic number. Like a number that's just like, for some reason, it's a value. You have no idea why. People call those magic numbers. And so we can name the number, and then we can say, okay, the name length, like what length is that? How do I say you did too many? How do I form that question? How do I find out if they put too many characters in?
It's greater than or equal. Are you wanting it?
Yeah,
It can be 10, but not over.
sure.
So greater than or equal to.
Yeah, so yeah, is the name dot length greater than max name input characters? So it's okay to have 10. You could have also done greater than or equal to max name plus 1 or whatever, but this is probably what you're gonna do. So if the name is greater than 10, so we have the Boolean and now we're hooking it into a branch. So if it's greater than 10, then we would say, you know, console log. And this is where like this actually literally, you know, like might be a message the user would see on the screen, right? So typically these are nicely messaged, like you're nice to the user, especially this poor person that has a long name. So we would say something like, sorry, your name is too long. Max name is, and this is where, since 10 is assigned to a variable, I'm not typing 10 twice. I can use it right here. Max name is max name input characters. Use this chance to make a Okay, so let's just check in on our program and see how it's doing. All right. So remember, we had to do all the prompts first. We're used to that. And then we get, sorry, your name is too long. Max name is 10 characters. And that's because I typed in my full name, which is more than 10. But if I do this again and I just put Zach, we don't see anything because we don't have an else to this. So that code is only going to run if it's greater than 10. So we need to validate more than one thing, though. We also wanted to check their age. So we can do this, like, if the name's too long, that's bad and we should end the program. Else if the age is, here's our first good use case of an and. If the age is greater than one, who's getting a license at 110, And actually, this is another, damn it, it's another or. If it's greater than 110 or it's less than, I guess 16. Then that's invalid too. What did I do? Did I do a magic number? I did. 110 and 16 are, you might be able to guess what it is, but it's still good to do max age equals 110, min age equals 16. So then I can also use that in this message if I wanted to as well. All right, so Zach, so this is less than 10, so that the first one would be, like that check would be false, so we'll go to the second check on age. And I'll do 111. Sorry, that age is not correct, it must be less than 110, greater than 16. So if both of these are false, then what they typed in is okay. And so we can go to else, and at that point, we can print the license. So this is like, hey, everything was valid, so let's go ahead and print the license then. So Zach will be valid. 18 will be valid. We didn't check address or anything like that. And so since both of them are valid, we can then print the license. I usually put 32. Cool. Okay. So one thing that you'll often see is if you're typing in a form that's got like 3 inputs and they're validating all 3 inputs, like if you mess up 2 of the inputs, they're not going to just tell you about one mess up and then have you submit again and then be like, oh, by the way, like you also jacked up this other thing. They'll tell you everything you did wrong at once. And like our program won't do that right now because it's only going to check if you get your name wrong and your age wrong, it's only going to tell you about your name being wrong because it's only going to run this one branch. So we kind of have to update the program a little bit potentially if we wanted to do that. The way we can do that is kind of change it. I'll just make a new version. So we can say, const name valid, or actually maybe we'll do invalid. So I'm moving these initial checks that we had inside the parentheses to variables. And const age invalid. And so we'll do an if that will check either, like both of these. So if the name is invalid or the age is invalid, then we need to tell them about it. Otherwise, they're both valid. And we can print the license. So if name is invalid, do this. If age is invalid, do this. If both are invalid, do this. So all three of those would potentially make this block run. So only when both of them are valid will this block run. And then it's kind of funny. We have to do kind of a funky thing here, which is like we don't want to, like, we need to know if both, like, yeah, sorry, this looks kind of funky, but we only want to print that the name is invalid if it was actually invalid. So if name invalid, then we would tell them about that. And then if the age is invalid, then we would tell them about that. Or we would like make one string, like combine the strings somehow. Like into a lengthy message. Let me go ahead and show you that. So you might do like var message. And then, you know, if the name was invalid, then you would do message plus equals that. Sorry, your name is too long. Mac's name is blah, 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 blah. And then we will add like a period. And then if the age is also invalid, then we would append again to the message.
So why would you evaluate for both and then inside evaluate for each one?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess why you would do that for.
So I kind of like the first thing I'm trying to figure out is like, did they do it? It's the first thing we're sort of asking is like, did they do it right?
Okay, so it's like, is there an error? If there is, evaluate it, which error?
Yeah, exactly. So if they did everything right, then we want to print the license. Otherwise, we need to figure out what they did wrong and tell them about it. And so, yeah, so now I'm sort of checking each error to figure out if they need that message or not. There's probably multiple ways to do this, but this is what my brain's doing it. So this is one way to get like one string of a message, because often it's like, it'll be like a toast notification, you know? It's like error or like something in the middle that'll say error, and it'll just be like one full message. So I'm making one string with the errors, and then I'm gonna console log that message. So I'm only gonna, like, so imagine the console log is like show notification, and I pass it the message. But that's what this is what we're gonna do for now, is just log it. So we know one of these at least is invalid. And so we're gonna start with this empty string, and then one of these is gonna append their message to it. Potentially both of these might be true. And notice like we've got an if, and it's okay, like inside the wiggles, you can write any code you want. So it's like not weird to do another if inside of it. I mean, it looks weird, but it's like the program doesn't care. So yeah, we do another if in here, and then remember, like, you can do an if, and then right below that do another if. These are unconnected. So like, it's not like an if else if. These are like two different branches that like both of these are going to run and check and see if that thing is true or false. So yeah, let me put an invalid name and age, and then we'll see, like, the message will have both these strings in it. So that's more than 10. And then, I can type -2 if I wanted to. Or wait, how did it skip age? Oh. Yeah. I had an error where I put a parenthesis. It isn't it? So what was it doing? I bet it was doing string comparison and just like worked.
They're in there.
No, I won't throw an error because it'll just like you can do greater than or equal some string.
What is it? Okay.
It does like a funky like word character thing. Turns it into. So there's actually a bug here. So when we get input from, so when we do this window prompt, no matter what you type, it's a string. Okay, like that's what it's going to give us back as a string. But if I type a number, like we want that to be a number because we want to compare it. Like we want it to do this greater than and less than stuff on the min age and the max age. So it seemed like it worked before, but it didn't work really because it was doing, you can actually compare strings. Like you can say, is apple greater than orange? Like what the hell does that mean? Oh shit. Okay. So like you can do that. Like you can ask that question if you want, and it says it's saying no. But there's like there is a you can like comparing strings like this. There is like a use case for it. It's not very common. So this is what we were doing before. It was like we were asking, is the string 111 greater than the string 110? And it's saying true, but I don't know why it's saying true. Like I don't think it's doing math here. So we need to, there's a way to convert types, like so you can take a string, and as long as what's in the string is all numbers or all integers or whatever, then you can convert it to a number. And so we need to do that for the program to work. And the way that you do that is when we look at age, we need to turn it into an integer. So the way to do that is, so we'll do const parse age equals age. And then the way that you would figure out how to do this is turn string to number in JavaScript. 7 ways. So this is what we want to do, parsing. So it will parse a string and return an integer of a specified radix. I don't know what that is, but so let's go with the 7 ways. I don't know what they were trying to show with those examples. I mean, I think we can, like, I think this will still work the way we expect, which is it'll turn that into 129, which is what we want. And it also can handle, like decimal numbers, what's called float.
I think it does do. I think it takes the string five as one.
Like it's converting it to, so it is working. But we should still probably force it, yeah. Yeah, so let's use parse int, that's fine. So this is good though, like, so maybe it was working is what Braden's saying, but we still, like, what if they type in not a number for their age? Like, what if they typed in a string? So that's another thing we need to check, because if they had done that, it would have broken it. Okay, cool. All right, so we need to parse it though, so we'll do parse int.
Never had it before.
Just let me see what this does. So yeah, if we do like 111 like this, and we do parse and this is a good way, like when you're trying to figure out how something works, like just open the console and just type it in and see what it does. So that's what I'm doing here. So yeah, that is what we want. And now I want to know, like, what happens if I put in junk? Like if the user types in for age, like they just put text. Okay, so we get not a number. So this is a clear, like we learned about not a number, it's sort of like undefined and null. So this like that makes sense in this case, right? So you're trying to parse it in and it's like that's not a number, it has to be. So we can also check it, we can ask, is this not a number? Like we can ask that question. So when we do parse int, we'll have parse age, and then we can say on this else if. Oh, that's my old one. Sorry. Let me go down here. So we'll do const first age equals parse int age. We'll say age invalid is age equals not a number, like that. Yeah, like that. So that's how you type that in. Or age is greater than max age, or age is less than min age. So, oh no, not age. We want to say first age. Age is the string, the input, and then we parse it as an int. And so parse age is the integer. And so we do our checks on the parse age. Okay. All right, Zach. Yeah, an error. Okay. That's so if you're ever getting errors and it's refreshing the page like that, you can go to this cog and do preserve log, and it will preserve the log on page refresh. So like there's some sort of bug. So like we didn't get, I put -2, so it should be invalid. well, we only see, sorry, your name is long. So we gotta figure out what's broken. How do you find out what's broken? You console log stuff to find out what it's doing. So we want to see, okay, well, what is age? What is parse age? And then what is age invalid? Let's just see what all those values are whenever we run this. Oh, yes, yes. I'm still calling the old function. Remember I improved? I improved it, but what am I calling? I'm calling the old one. So I realized that because I didn't see any of my logs, and the only explanation for that is that this function's not running. So, yeah, validate inputs. Okay. All right, cool. So, yeah, you see it's a black -2, like the font is, or the color of it is black, and then when we force it to an end, you can see it kind of turns into blue. Like whenever you console log stuff, it'll like, depending on the type, it'll make it look a particular way, like this boolean is blue as well. And then we get, yeah, sorry your name is too long, and we also get sorry that name is not correct. So we get like one full message of what we did wrong. The only problem is that we don't have a space right here, but let's not worry about that. Okay. I keep going, but I have to go. I'm lunch with my parents. But I was gonna show everyone how to upload to GitHub. So anybody that did everyone should learn how to do this, but in particular the people that did the project, you're gonna upload it to GitHub and send it to me. Just because that's a good thing to have on your GitHub. So I'll probably do that Wednesday then, first thing, and you guys get an extension, I guess. Is that okay? If you weren't gonna do it, I mean, I don't think you're gonna do it now. So, yeah, let's do that, and I'll show you everyone first thing Wednesday how to push to GitHub. Or if you want, this is actually good practice. Here's a guide. I'll put in Slack. In Slack, here's a guide by GitHub for how to create a new repository and push to it. And you can use this thing called GitHub Desktop, which is like a tool that makes it easy to do it. Because a lot of times people do GitHub stuff with the terminal, like the cool black screen. But you don't have to do that. You can use the GUI. And a lot of people do use it. So if you want to, like, that's a common task as a programmer is to read a guide and just like do what's in the guide. Like that's a common thing. And so give that a shot if you want. But I'll also show everybody how to say. Okay, any questions?
Can you upload like an image file, or do you just have to do URLs? Like for images on a garage sale, like if I did images or actually say locally on my computer, can those get uploaded to GitHub, or would I have to use a URL like for a picture? So,
Yeah, no, you can upload that to GitHub,
okay.
the image. As long as they're not too big, which I think it's like 100 megabytes is like the max file size. So yeah. Yes, you can upload those. Any other questions? Oh, dang. Someone got stuck outside.
What?
Yeah. Sorry, song. Okay, thanks everybody. And I'll see you, have a good weekend. I'll see you on Wednesday.